I'm a little late. Sorry. And it's only me here right now because I didn't do the thing where I set it to go live and then a few people get to come in and all that kind of thing before I get here. But it's just me. So I'm gonna enjoy my coffee for a minute. And hope that a few people show up. Oh, we got 9 people online. Who's here? Ryan. It's just you and me, dude, and it's your birthday. Happy birthday. We got Phil. We got Steven. It's an intimate group. Everybody wish Ryan a happy birthday. And why I kind of slept like crap, so I'm dragging today, but I got a massive coffee in my cup here, so I'll pick it up here. Slowly but surely, you guys. Slowly but surely. Yeah, it all happened. Oh, how you guys doing this week? Well, what am I working on now? Video for this guy, Jam Pedals, Double Dreamer. This is a combination of a tube screamer style circuit as well as a kind of a more or less mid-humpy kind of drive in one pedal, and then there's a gain boost for both of them. You can hit with that pedal. And so the track's all done for it, and just working on it. What else? So I put out the exotic video this week for these guys. You saw that. Man, I love these little pedals. This one's going on my board for sure. Sounds so good. Just a great little clean boost. Steven says, give details about the gig I did last week. It was a private function with Dawn. It was a party, and it went well. I just used my PT-15, which sounded great for the first sort of time in that setting. I used it live, not at like a bar gig or something. It was more like a kind of high-end situation. It sounded really, really, really good. And the neat thing that I discovered about it is I could run the master on 5 or 6, the overall master. And the channel masters didn't need to be any higher than 2.5 to 3.5 or something like that. And I had all the volume I needed. So you know how it is. You worry about like whether or not you're gonna have enough power and all that. And this is 15 watts, and so I was pretty sure, like, for most situations it's going to be fine, because it's so deceiving, like whether an amp is, say, cathode bias like the Badgers, or whether it's class A, B, and kind of built with some headroom into the tone and stuff like that. Wattage isn't the whole picture when it comes to, like, is the amp going to be loud enough? There's other factors that come into play, like the design of the amp. So Daniel says, any tips on learning scales? You kind of just have to bear down and do it. Scales, modes, it's just practice. It's really just putting in the time. I don't know any other way to describe it. It can be helpful to do things like play them up one string, so you can start to get, like, because the problem is with scales and the guitars, can become so pattern based, and you're not thinking about the notes and the sounds as much as you are as the shapes. So I remember, like, Joe Satriani saying, playing up one string can be a good thing to get used to. It gets you more into the actual intervals of the scale. Whether it's the next step's going to be a whole step or a half step, that kind of thing. And then also it tends to kind of be more about the sound, which is interesting. It's less pattern based when you're playing up a string, or maybe up 2 strings, so kind of, and then how to tie them together, that can be really important to me, how to move between them, so that you don't just get locked into those boxes, that's the thing. And I would say that the only thing about learning scales is also, it's great to temper it with a healthy dose of learning arpeggios, so that if you're playing a scale, let's say you're playing A Dorian or something like that, or A natural minor, like learning the A minor arpeggios in that position, so that you can sort of see the chord tones within the scale. knowing where the chord tones are. That's really helpful too. Uh, okay. Joe Peasy for Sheezy says, beautiful new guitar. Thanks. Can you please tell us how to set the height of the Thornbuckers? I just do it by ear. There's a great video I saw once of Joe Walsh describing how he sets pickup height, and I thought it was really good. First of all, you want to use a clean tone, because or relatively almost clean, if not clean, because you can really hear pickup volume better when the sound's not all compressed from overdrive. So listen to a good balanced clean sound that you're familiar with maybe another guitar, and then listen to the tone of the pickups and the volume of the pickups. And what you generally are going to find is that the bass side of the pickup, because those strings just have more energy, is going to need to be a little lower than the treble side of the pickup. And you'll probably find that the neck pickup has to be a little lower than the bridge pickup in order to get, because there's more energy at the neck with the strings vibrating more there than there is at the bridge, where they can't vibrate as much because they terminate there. So that's what I find generally. Neck pickup a little lower, a little bit of a slant on the pickups, so the bass side's a little bit lower. Start with that, and then just kind of moving them up and down, see what you like. But use your ears mainly, and flip between all three pickup positions if it's a dual humbucker guitar, and listen to the sounds, and just try and set them accordingly. But look for that Joe Walsh video. Like, maybe look up, on YouTube, Joe Walsh pickups or something, or pickup adjustment, and you'll probably find it. I thought it was really good. And basically that's how I do it. That's how he does it. Okay, I lost my place in the chat there, so I'm gonna Mark says, hang on, haven't made coffee yet. I know, dude. I'm dragging my butt to that. I don't know why. I woke up really tired, and that's why I kind of started late. I didn't go to bed that late. But anyway. Leo says he ate a bunch of magic mushrooms and went camping, and he's recovering now. Everybody wish Leo well. What else? What else we got here? Moving down in the chat. Are you going to do a Nuniber Neuron demo? That's the new overdrivey one, right? I do have it here, and yes, I am. It's an interesting pedal. Kind of can be used, as either a direct preamp or into the front of an amp as a typical distortion, because it has, so you can use it direct because it's got speaker simulation built in. You can defeat, or you could use it into the effect return of an amplifier and use it like a preamp into a power amp. Interesting pedal. Digital distortion, basically. But yeah, it's really like a full-on preamp in a pedal. So yeah, I will be doing that pretty soon here. They've been waiting, so I got to get on it. I got to get a ton done. It gets harder. I don't know why. It's like I just need to spend the amount of time I need to spend on them to make them to make them what I want them to be, like the videos. Which isn't always the best for getting things done in a timely fashion, but I don't want to just do them quick. And it seems like I can, generally speaking, these days, I get a couple done a week. But that's like all, like, you don't want to put out videos every day of the week because that's just too much, So generally speaking, if I can do 2, maybe 3 a week, that's kind of the structure that I've fallen into. And it seems like that's about all I can do, and do them the way that I like to do them, which doesn't always satisfy the people that are putting out the pedals, because they want their video now many times, which I get. I mean, they've got a pedal they're putting out, and they'd like to see their video, sometime this month, sort of thing, But anyway, blah blah. That's how all quality problems. Old Guy's Guitar Vlog is in the top chat. Thanks, man, for doing that. And he says, been a while as I lost my studio in a flood. Oh, dude, I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope you had insurance. That's terrible, man. I know I haven't seen you around. I'm really sorry to hear that. It says he says got an HX Stomp to play and have fun with now. Any thoughts on the Headrush 112 system to use with it? I haven't tried the Headrush, but the HX Stomp is a great little thing. And maybe silver lining or something in these terrible situations could be like you might discover, oh, well, geez, this is a great little thing, and I don't really need much else. Yeah, I have one sitting right here. There it is. So I've been intending for a while to put this on my board and try and use it, mainly as a delay, uh, but also for other things too, and see how it works out for that. I love these little things. I mean, it's a great. I just feel like it's underappreciated. This little box. They kind of made just about one of the most. I mean, next to an H9, I guess one of the most, maybe even more than an H9, because an H9 isn't an amp modeler. Really one of the most powerful pedals out there, and I don't know that it gets the love that it deserves, to be honest, because it can do just about anything. It can be a clone or a reasonable facsimile thereof, or an amp modeler, or a delay, or a reverb, or all those things at once. What's not to like? You know? Yeah. I think I'm gonna for the clinics I have coming up. I'm gonna use the HX effects with the PT, and do a clinic like that. But I was almost thinking like maybe I should do the HX Stomp with the PT. But then I thought no, I'll use the HX effects because it'll channel switch the amp because it has the relays and all that built in. For the channel switching. But I thought it'd be cool also to do like the world's tiniest tube amp rig almost, where I could use the HX Stomp as a full-on thing with the, but can't really do 4-cable method then and all that stuff. So I don't know. I'm going to do the HX effects because it seems to be a better fit for my clinic. And I think anyway, I've got some clinics coming up, and I'm just going to kind of build off the ones that I've already done and do a very similar thing where I'm building the track in a clinic. But what I want to do is incorporate the HX effects as this, for switching the amplifier, and then also doing some interesting sounds. Kind of like, the concept being like really powerful small guitar rig that you could basically fit in just about a gig duffel bag with the amp and the HX effects, and you'd have just about everything you need. So that's my plan anyways, and to integrate them together. Somebody else is up there in the top chat, and it's Rico USA. Thank you, sir. And thanks for doing the top chat. Appreciate that. He says, for the best studio recording quality, how important is an ISO box for your cabs? Why did you create an ISO box for your studio, and how often did you use the ISO box versus recording through a Kemper aux box direct? Well, if you saw the video I did of the ISO years ago, I mean, that was pre-Kemper. Kemper might have just been coming out around then. The Axe Effects was out, I think, but that was a long time ago. I mean, I think I made that isolation closet in 2010 or 11. It's crazy how long ago that is now. And the reality is, I didn't like it. I didn't like when I built a box in my closet and closed it up with soft stuff on the inside. It sounded like a box, which means, if this was your open sounding guitar sound, it sounded like this when I put a microphone on it and closed up the box. It just went like, just like your voice does when it just accentuates all the mid-range and kind of like boxy frequencies. No pun intended, but pun intended. So what made it sound better was actually when I tore the box out of the closet, because I didn't like it. And then I just put in the closet some soft stuff surrounding a cabinet with a mic on it. That worked much better. The closet's still a box, but it's a bigger box with the walls were further apart. And there was some space between the soft stuff that I put around the cabinet and the walls in the closet. So there's a little bit of air movement in there. So long story short, all that mid-range wasn't getting built up and put back into the mics. And what I actually found was when I put a 112 in a closet and surrounded it with all that soft stuff, it was fine. As far as volume goes, I actually went next door. I had one adjoining wall in that place that I was in with a neighbor, and I went over, and it was this girl living there next door, I remember, and I had my guitar with a wire. This is true. I had my guitar with a wireless on. Remember, it was my Van Halen guitar, the EVH, and I went next door, middle of the day with a wireless, set up, and the amp cranked up pretty good, coming through the cabinet, all closed up in there with the 702 style, insulation stuff all surrounding the cab. And I was playing, and I knocked on her door, and she came to the door, and she kind of looked at me like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I was just wondering if this bothers you. Can you hear this?" And she probably didn't get like there's a wireless system or whatever. She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, do you mind if I just come in for a second? I'm sorry. I want to hear if." And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." And so I went in and I was listening, in her place, it was like you could hear the smallest, maybe if you stuck your ear to the wall. And so I was like, okay, this is going to work. It's going to be fine. So long story short, the ISO box wasn't really that necessary. If you've got a separate closet and you want to do a cabinet, and you can, it's far away from your listening position, you might be able to get far enough away that you can make it work, and you won't have that boxy thing. Now, since then, of course, the aux has come out, and the Sur reactive load, and there's all these other solutions that weren't available. Maybe the first 2 Notes unit was out back then, maybe, but I hadn't tried it yet. And I generally, I would say, long story short, that a load box with IRs is the way to go now. It sounds better. It's easier. There's so much less gear. You don't need mic pre's. And somebody else is in the top chat here. It's going to disappear. I just want to get to it. It's Andrew, and he says, any thoughts on the Fryat power station to use with an amp that has no effects loop? Any other alternatives to this box? The power station's great. Alternative would be the Boss unit. I've had the power station for a long time, and I think it's kind of a no-brainer, especially for the price at about $600. I think aren't they? $599. Could be wrong. It might be $699. I think it's $599. But it's a terrific solution if you're using a plexi or a head that doesn't have an effect loop, and you want to be able to get a great cranked up amp sound, add some effects to it, and then have it at any volume or maybe silent and use load out to record. There's nothing quite like it. And credit for coming up with a good, useful device that works really well in a lot of situations. Does it sound exactly the same as the amp into the cabinet? I guess not, but it's really, really good. It's really, really good, I think, for what it is. With the thing is, it's got enough controls on it with the load switches where you can kind of, accentuate the reactive load, both the thump and then the kind of high rise. There's 3 different switch settings where you can turn that stuff off completely, basically have a resistive load, or you can turn on the reactive components at 2 different settings in the lows and the highs. And in there, you'll probably, between that and then the presence and depth controls on the front of the unit that are for the internal power amp, the 50-watt power amp, you should be able to find something that works really good for you. I've got no reservations about recommending it. I think it's a good unit. I would just go that way. Good evening from Germany, close to Tolman. That's a beautiful countryside over there, man. Who's that? God, my eyes are so bad. The El Rondo. Yeah, nice over there, dude. I like going there. Let's see. Can you tell us how you stack drives and how many in type? Well, on my board right now, I've got a Bogner Blue that I use as sort of a lower gain Marshall-y thing into channel 1 of my amp. I've got a Jan Ray, and then in front of both of those is a Klon style drive, which is an Archer. So generally speaking, I'll pick one of those 2 drives. The Jan Ray is more my kind of darker, is it dirty, is it clean thing. The Bogner also is actually pretty transparent. It can sound, the way I'm using it. The Blue is a great pedal as far as like just adding a hint of overdrive to your sound to get a little bit of edge if you want. It'll get gainier too, but it's a little flatter in the mids than the Jan Ray. It doesn't affect the tone as much. It sounds a little bit more like just the amp, but you're adding some, it's like a really great amp style drive. And then hitting them in front with the Klon style drive in front if I want to maybe get a solo tone. These are more mild sort of lower gain solo sounds that I would be going for than if I use my amps channel 2, which is set for more like I think JCM 800 kind of crunch. And then if I hit that with the Klon-y drive, it's over the top kind of high gain. So that's how I do it. It's either the Jan Ray or the Bogner right now with the Klon style drive in front, rocket archer. That works well for me. I hope I gave a good enough answer there to Rico up in the top chat about the ISO box. I hope that helps. I would just say, just to kind of finish my thought on that, long story short, if you've got a separate closet that's kind of isolated away from your control room area and where you think you could maybe bury a cabinet, I bought the acoustic material that I surrounded the cabinet with. There were some panels from, oh, what is the company called? No, I'm gonna ATS Acoustics. That's what they're called, ATS Acoustics. I also have some similar stuff from Clear Sonic. They make some Clear Sonic panels, the same ones that Joe Bonamassa, you know, he has a Clear Sonic panel. They make some of these things called Sorber baffles. They're pretty good, and you can surround a cab with that. Yeah, so if you want to, if you want to have a cabinet and mics going and stuff, I would just recommend getting a, you know, start with a SM57 or something, and then maybe you could augment it with a ribbon mic if you can. Get a nice mic pre. I started with the API A2D 2-channel API mic pre, and it's a bit more of an investment, and but it is fun. The mics is always fun, you know, using real microphones and stuff. So you could go that route. It's an investment, and it does make more noise and stuff. Or you could get a PT15. Just forget all that stuff. Go DI. Alex B is in the top chat, and he says recent PT15 owner said that he thought channels 2 and 3 were even more Marshall-like than the PT100. I know what he means. Thoughts? I was surprised given the lower wattage in 6v6 versus EL34 tubes. Well, you know what it is that with the low wattage, what we've found is that it's just really sweet sounding. There's something about the, you know, where you can get it into the zone and it just sounds really lively. And because you're using the power section, and I don't know, I've for a long time I've been a big fan of 6v6s because of the character. I've had 2 amps, and this is my experience with 6v6s, which are both exceptional amps, but the divided by 13 FTR 37, which is really the amp that Fred built his company on, you know, in the beginning. That was the one that really got his name out there. FTR 37 is sort of like, I think of as a big double power deluxe reverb, and it's got this mid boost in it if you pull the volume out. It's a very simple amp. It's just if we forget about the click channel, the F86 style channel, whatever, it's a 57, 51 or whatever the pentode channel is in that, just think about the 12AX7 channel in it. It's a bass, treble, and a volume that's got a mid boost on it, and that's it. That amp sounded like a beautiful deluxe reverb at low volume, and then if you turned it up to about 4 or 5, and especially if you pull the volume knob out, it had this mid boost in it. Still have one, it's here somewhere. Great, it's a great sounding amplifier. I just haven't used it in a long time, but really good. With the mid boost pulled in into like a 412, it sounded like kick ass, like kind of like, not like all of a sudden it was like not really that Fendery. It wasn't like bloated, and like it was, you know, it had a great rock crunch, not like a metal, but like, you know, rock and roll sound to it. And it was like, because 6v6s, and it's kind of like sounds great clean. But anyways, long story short, it sounded great all the way across the whole sweep of the drive, from clean all the way up to that grindy thing. So I was like, that's interesting. It was my first 6v6 amp. Then I got the Kelly. Probably around 2011 or 12, that John partnered with Jim Kelly, and for a long time they made the Jim Kelly reverb amp. Same deal, amazing clean sound, and then you'd grind it up, and it even had a gain boost and kind of a mid boost circuit in it and stuff, and overdriven, it sounds amazing. And so it was like, this tube works for everything. Now EL34s, I think they can sound pretty good clean, but they just, you guys know what I mean. They sort of lie there a little bit in the mids, you know, they're mid-centered. In most I mean, you know, the amps can surprise you, you know, but I never felt like they were this magic. Like, have you ever felt like EL34 is like magic clean? You know, most Marshall amps that are kind of like, when we think of the Hendrixy thing and all that, it's like KT66s, you know, and a JTM 4500. Or something like that. It's not generally the EL34s I think of as like a crunchy tube. They're great through the mids and that kind of rock and roll crunch, you know. 6v6s, it's a different thing, you know? They kind of work for everything. So, when John built the original PT kind of prototype, PT-15 prototype, which was really just the PT-100 channel 2 built into this little bread box thing that he built, with the 6v6s and the 15-watt power amp, that's essentially the same one that's in the amp now that we've brought out. I heard it and it was like, this thing sounds ferocious. Like, and it didn't sound anything like most EL84 amps I've heard, you know, because a lot of people use those tubes. It just had this great, really, I don't know, it was just like all there, and it sounded big. It didn't sound small. And it just sort of matched my experience with 6v6s. Not to mention the fact that the 6v6 that we use in it is well known now. It's kind of, it's a lot of people think it's one of the best 6v6s ever made is the JJ. They're super reliable. They handle super high plate voltage. You know, John used them in the Kelly a lot, and the Kelly's really high plate voltage, evidently. So they're robust. They work great. And they sound a little different than maybe the older some people say they're a cross between a 6L6 and 6v6 tonally. But anyways, I just find that in the 15, it just works from clean all the way to dirty. And anyways, to answer your question, the original question was, does it sound even more martially? You know, I mean, the tone of an amp, the power amp, has something to do with the overall tone of the amp, but the tone of the amp is mainly generated in the preamp, and then the power amp adds something tonally, be it 6L6s, EL34s, whatever. But when you do drive it up, it starts to, and there's something about that 6v6 drive, as that's getting added into the equation, it adds this liveliness to the sound that's pretty special. And that's why a lot of people that might think, oh, I need a 50-watt amp to be happy, or I need a whatever. It's like, well, really, you should try the lower wattage thing and experiment with, because the voice sounds so big, and the tubes have got, you know, they're a real bold tube. They've got headroom, and they've got low end, and they've got top end, and it's a bigger sound than what you might think if you think about 15 watts. And it's I don't know, it's just kind of special. It's like, I know, like, I'm wondering now with two of these amps, it's like, I wonder if, like, even on a loud rock stage, I think I could get away with this, like, especially if I'm certainly on gigs where I'm using in-ears. But if it's a gig where I'm not using in-ears, it's like, I think two of these in stereo, like my main, because I'm used to using two PT-100s in stereo, but I've got the masters down, you know, I'm not like really maxing out the amps or anything like that when I play, you know, I'm thinking about my Japan gig that I've done for a number of years now with Tyoshi Nagabuchi. It's like, it's pretty loud stage, but not that loud. And the guitars are in the monitors and in the sides and stuff like that. So it's like, well, I think I could probably use two of these amps, and maybe it even sounds better than the hundreds, because I can get them up into that zone and get those tubes working. You know, I think it might just work. So, and my experience playing with Don last weekend, who's, you know, admittedly a pretty quiet stage, but I had lots of power in reserve, so I think I'm gonna work. I'm pretty excited about it. But anyways, it is a really sweet sounding amp. It's a pretty special. I love seeing people getting them out there and enjoying it and hearing the stories about it and stuff, because a lot of them are out there. Now, Surf B is going to see Queen tonight. He says, looking forward to it. Enjoy. Have a good time at the gig. Hi, Pete. What are you recording at the moment? Well, I was just working on, I was mentioning I'm doing a demo for this Jam Pedals Double Dreamer. So I just did a track for that, finished it yesterday, and the video will be out next week. I'm going to do a video for a Fox Gear Reverb next week. Oh, I did a song, Gil Urin, before he stepped out on a vacation a couple weeks ago. He dropped off a couple guitars for a night, and he asked me if I could record something with him. They're his Lyra, I think, or Lyra, hollow body model that he's come out with. And I did a track with those. And so I just have to finish that video, because it's actually really cool. I think it turned out really good. So I only had like 12 hours with the guitars, and I had to come up with a piece of music. And Gil's a friend, and I said, sure, come by, bring me the guitars, and I'll just make a little video for you and stuff. So that'll be out this week. But it's a little song that I did with his two different models. One's sort of very 335 in its construction. The other one's all mahogany. So a little bit warmer sounding and stuff. So working on all that stuff, and be a few tracks coming out this week, videos. Tom says, are you retiring your PT100 for touring? If so, I could store it in my house for you. Well, the reality is my two main touring PT100s are over in, there's one sitting right there, but that's actually one of the silver face ones. I have two in the States, and then I have two over in Japan. So if I was to go to Japan to do some other stuff, if they have me back, you know, the 2 amps are sitting there with the cabinets over in Japan right now. So the reality, there's financial concerns and all that. Like, no matter how bad I actually want to try PT15s, I've got 2 amps and 2 cabs sitting there waiting to go, and there's no expense involved in getting anything over there or hassle, and we can just pull them out of storage. So my guess is I'll probably end up, you know, unless it's a full tour, you know, I'll probably end up using them for, yeah, see what I'm getting at. So the PT, although I would love to be trying the PT15, but I don't want to discount the 100. I mean, it's a fantastic amplifier. It's served me well now for 10 plus years. No, about 10 years. When did I start using the PT100, the original one? I guess it was 2008. Yeah, 2008. So a little bit over 10 years. Some incarnations of those amps has been what I've been using. What else? What else? What else? I'm probably way behind here as usual. Ray says, man, for some reason I'm always 6 minutes late and hitting refresh like a madman. You know, you didn't miss anything. I was really tired, and I'm still tired, but I'm waking up a little bit from the coffee. So I was pretty slow at the beginning. Yeah. Alrighty. Moving down here in the chat. Have you seen John Button's hair recently? Says Jim. Hey, he looks great. He's got a new haircut. He had the same hairdo for a long time. Now he's got a different do. Man's got a good head of hair. John's my buddy that plays bass in the Who, and killing it with those guys. Okay. We got Mark Effects. He says hello from Florida. Pete, have you heard of Barber Electronics? You know something? I have. That's Scott Thor music. Scott Thor music. Like Barber doesn't even have a compressor called the Tone Pump and stuff. I have never played a Barber pedal. I just thought about that now. I just realized that. It's kind of weird because they're been around for a long time. Just for whatever reason, I've never tried one. Yeah, you're saying check out the Barber Direct Drive and Tone Press. I know the Direct Drive. I remember that pedal, but I've never tried one. It's been out for forever, and I've never had any contact with that company or anything. So maybe someday I'll give them a go. But they were, you know, seemed to be everywhere for a while. Kind of one of the boutique, you know, smaller brands, but that was building and doing a lot, you know. I remember the Tone Press, not Tone Pump, right? Tone Press, yeah. Steve says, I just ordered Thornbucker Plus set. We'll be putting them in a Strat next weekend. Can't wait to try them. Yeah, tell me how it goes. And could Gibson please stop destroying their guitars and their rep? Yeah, that was weird, that video they put out this week. I don't know. That company, man. It's like, Gibson, we want you to win. Stop doing stupid stuff. I don't like the idea. I mean, give them to music schools, you know? Like Eddie Van Halen when he gave away all those guitars. Like, there's something, you don't have to run them over with a tank or whatever they did. It's a publicity stunt. It's a waste of wood, you know? Give them to inner city music programs. You know, mark them as seconds or whatever, and that'd be good PR, right? Like, hello, I don't know. Provide them to kids that want to learn how to play. It'd be good. You're making future guitar play. Some of those people are going to grow up and buy Gibsons. They'll remember that you did that, you know. Maybe I should be the CEO of Gibson. I promise I'll do a good job. Why? Why not? Why not me? I'll hire Gillian, Tom Bartlett to be senior master builders. I'll pay them whatever they want, and I'll let them loose in the shop. And I also won't do any more frivolous lawsuits. We'll just make great guitars. I like this idea. Alex B says, thanks for the 6v6 thoughts. I've also recently started getting interested in matchless and Comet amps. Have you tried these other than the Concord? That's Alex in the top chat. Thanks for doing the top chat, good sir. I'll answer that in just 1 second because there's somebody else up there that showed up at the same time in the top chat. Wait, before I forget your question. Matchless and Comet amps, have you tried these other than the Concord? Okay, I'll remember that, Alex. Having achieved so much, I still feel like I'm getting started, but that's Northville Guitar Lessons in the top chat. He says, do you write out your goals? How did you get turned on to taking charge of your own success? Thank you, James Maxwell. Thanks, dude. There was no plan B, and I just wanted to play guitar. And, I always had this simple, very simple little mantras. Like I'd see people on TV and go, well, if that guy can do it, then I can do it. He's going to be older someday. Somebody got pissed when I said this in the chat one day. He's going to be too old to do it someday. But the reality is, people get older and they retire, right? And I just thought, well, when I grow up, maybe I can take that guy's place, It was like, this is my thinking when I'm a kid, And then I just thought if I practice hard enough and I'm just the best person in the room for the gig, I'll get the gig. And it was like that. Those were the things that I thought, like in my 14-year-old brain or whatever. I just have to be the best one for the job in the room. So if I work hard enough, and I like working because I like playing guitar, so it's not hard for me to sit there and work for 12 hours. I mean, it's work, but there was this book that a friend of mine gave me once, and it was called Pleasure, and it's all about how when we get older as adults, we sort of it's the difference between fun and pleasure. It's like, oh, fun, let's have fun, like let's cut loose. And fun can mean like let's get drunk or do drugs or whatever, all these things that you do to kind of get out of your mundane. But if you remember back when you were a kid, this is some of the things this book gets into. And it made a lot of sense to me. It was like when we're kids, pleasure meant not necessarily like you're having fun, but like say you're building a sandcastle in a sandbox. You're having fun, but you're actually doing you're not sitting there laughing and goofing off. You're like, there's precision involved in it. And you're actually sort of serious, like you're playing, but it's on a serious thing. And to me, music was like that. It wasn't like, so as I got into my adult life, it was like, well, if I can make this something where I can make a go of it and make a career of it, I just get to do what I enjoy anyway. And I find pleasure in that. It's not like fun, let's cut loose and like whatever and like distract and self-medicate by, like I say, like booze or whatever, Not that, everybody likes to go out and turn their brain off once in a while. I get that. But my point is that it was a pure kind of thing when I was a kid, like going, if I can make a go at this somehow, I'll get to do what I love. And that whole old mantra about do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life and all that. That just was what really carried me through. So like when I'm getting ready for a tour or an audition even, and it's like, well, okay, you got to learn these 10 songs for this audition. It's like, okay, ooh, that's a lot of work, but is it really? You're sitting there playing guitar. That's what I did anyway when I was like 13. So it's fun for me. So it's channeling your passion and what you love to do, what you find pleasure, right? As opposed to fun. Fun is it's making your work and the thing that it's like when I see John Suhr working on guitars, when he's sitting there doing frets and he'll, complain about it sometimes or whatever, because I'm sure he'd like more time off. But the reality is the guy gets a deep-seated, sense of accomplishment, and he finds pleasure in precision craftsmanship and design and stuff like that. So when he's sitting there doing it, he's serious as a heart attack and he's in the zone, and that doesn't, my Siri just like my phone, when I said serious as a heart attack, my phone just, like, it's like, I don't know, it like opened up and thought I was telling a joke or something. Sorry. Anyways, but yeah, it really is about that. It's about like channeling, And I know this is difficult to do. I did it at a really young age, so I did it like I made it to MI, and I managed to get myself to LA at 18 or 19 when I didn't have any other care in the world, and I could just go, okay, you're here, you made it. You made it. Now's your chance. Don't screw this up like in the next 5 years or whatever. You got to make a go at this. So I just got to, bear down and work really hard on like whatever that means, like trying to get gigs, writing songs, learn more. My year at MI, I tried to learn as much as I could and soak it up and all that stuff. And the reality is, by the time I got to about 24 or 25, I was actually starting to burn out a little bit and was almost on the verge of maybe not gonna make it happen. Um, and then I got a break, which was my first record deal. Um, that came along literally right at the moment when things could have gone a different way, because I was starting to get disgruntled, and then all of a sudden I got a injection of cash from a record deal, that where I got an advance, and we got signed in Japan, with a band that I'd worked with for 5 years, and written and demoed 50 songs and stuff. Meanwhile, I'm just toiling away, like trying to make a living, uh, and I was getting tired, but it paid off. The work paid off, and that's when I found myself in Japan for the first time and stuff. And all of a sudden, I had this career that, like, whoa, like all this, it happened, And that the reality is that dough and everything only lasted for like a year. But I always say that little successes, you need a taste of success every now and then. So that could be like the local cover band when you're a kid, they need a guitar player and you work really hard and then you get the gig. Um, little tastes of success. For me, I wrote a premiere column once about when I went and did a air guitar competition, and I won this contest where I got to go on stage with AC/DC when I was like 14 or 15. That was like a little success because I had to take the day off work, go to the mall, act like an idiot in front of a bunch of people, um, do all these things that my dad was probably like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you know what I mean?" And then I went and did it, and it's like I won the whole AC/DC album collection on an LP. I've got pictures with my heroes at that point, and I made, it all worked, and I was like, "See, um, these little things." I'll tell you a good story actually. My girl Britt, she's a drummer and plays guitar and stuff like that. This is kind of a cool story, and it's a similar thing. Um, the band Green Day. She's a big Green Day fan, and she played guitar and played drums. And when she was a kid, she knew that occasionally they would get people up to play with them. Now these are arena shows. It's like Green Day show. So um, she got tickets to go to a Green Day show, and there was a song called, I think it's Jesus of Suburbia, and it's almost like prog rock. It's like a big long epic tune that's like 10 minutes long. And she learned how to play that song, and she knew how to play it. This is like, I think she was like 14 or something like that, 15 maybe. And she knew how to play it. And she thought in her mind at that young age, just thought, I'm going to get on stage with Green Day when I go to the show. I know how to do it. And she made a big sign. Uh, and the tickets were she lived somewhere else, but the tickets were in Vegas. Like her and her mom went to Vegas for a little trip or whatever. And she went and saw them there. But she made a big banner that said whatever it said on it, like, I can play blah, blah, blah. And she wrote the key of the song on there. And she said, let me play, get whatever it said on the sign. And she was holding the sign up all night, like, and she's in the arena in Vegas. And Billy Joe saw the sign and went like, and pointed at her, like she was on the side, like not even like that close to the stage. She was like off on one of but the sign was big enough that she was holding up, and he's like, you know how to play it, and her mom is like, her mom probably thought she was like, oh, come on, give me a break, like, what are you doing, and she's holding up the sign and Billy Joe points her out and says, come down here, okay, you better know what, and she ran down and made it all the way through the floor and got up, and they pulled her up on stage, and he gave his guitar to her, Les Paul Jr. or whatever it was. And she's up there on stage all of a sudden, and her mom, she took video on her phone, and her mom's like going like, oh my God, like, like my kid, she was probably just in that moment freaking out, like, she was right. Like she made this happen. And so she got up there and she was because she was little, the guitar strap was too long for her. So she had to sit down on the monitor because they had to get the song started. So she sat and played it, but he's running over and singing to her, and she plays the whole damn song perfectly, with them. And then at the end of it, she hands the guitar back, and he points to the end of the ramp, the ego ramp, in the middle of the stage, and she runs off the end of the ramp. You can find this on YouTube because there's video of it that her mom took. But she ran off the stage and jumped, stage dived out into the audience. That's how you do it. I don't know. You make it happen, And it's the same thing as that AC/DC thing with me. And many other examples I can cite in my life where it is the simplest thing where if you can tap into that thing where it's just like there's no pollution from all the shit that we all have to deal with every day, and you can't do it, or you're not good enough, or what people tell you and all this stuff. When you're 13 or 14 or 15, there's this purity. Some might see it as being naive, but other people might see it as being unpolluted. And you see that through. You make that plan and you see it through. So for me, it was like, MI, get to LA, the rest will follow. And then once I got to MI, I was like, whoa, it changed my vision of sort of what it meant to be a professional musician, because I saw all these people like Michael Hedges and all these people in my first week here, the MI initiation sort of week or whatever, was like a lot of incredible music and stuff going on. And I just kind of like, so my mind expanded, but then when you're going to have to work really, really, really hard and just work really hard and bear down. So I did that for the next 5 years. And like I say, I almost got to the point where I was getting a little burned out because I wasn't having a lot of success. And then I got a record deal right then. It worked out. And all of a sudden I'd gone from making minimum wage to, having, for me, a lot of money in the bank and stuff at about 25 or 26 years old. And I still remember the moment when, deposit into my bank account came through, that advance, and I looked at my boss, who was also my roommate at the time, and I said, "I quit," and he just started laughing. I was like, he knew what had happened, and I was jumping up and down, and all of a sudden, I was like, I'm a professional musician now. Anyway, thanks for listening to my stories. Back to Matchless and Comet. So I've played a Comet 60. That was a minute ago, but we were talking about some other amps, 6v6s. Matchless and Comet. I've played a Comet 60. I've played the little Comet 19. I've played their little Aero Cab thing, which is more folks in the top chat I'm going to miss. What else have I played? Matchless SC30, the original DC30. Great sounding amps in that AC30 but modded vein. I like them all, because I'm a big AC30 fan. So I missed a couple top chat things. Let me get Steve and Douglas here in the top chat. Can I order custom wiring from Sir doing a 2-knob S-type parts caster with 5-way switch with Sir silencing circuit? You can totally order custom wiring. Sir is a custom shop, so there's no problem doing that. And you just deal with I'm not sure exactly like with the dealer what the form looks like or whatever, but I think you just tell them exactly what you want, and the dealers are the best one to answer those questions as far as what you can come up with. But yeah, that's no problem. Now I missed somebody in the top chat. Maybe it was Tom. You got lucky, where luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Yeah, lucky, exactly. Yeah, you have to be ready, and preparation meets opportunity is really what it is. I've told this story often about my Chris Cornell auditions, the same thing where I had to work my ass off for all night and barely get any sleep. And then I went in and I did it, and I did the work, preparation meeting opportunity. Lucky. I got the call at the email, sure, but that was years of making connections leading up to the point where the opportunity came up. And when the opportunity came up, and I'll tell you, there was a lot of other good guitar players that came down for that thing, and some of them didn't, because of the limited amount of time and stuff like that. Some of the other guitar players that came in, I was like, well, that guy's going to get the gig. He's amazing. I won't name names, but they didn't know the songs. They probably just didn't have time to learn them. But I stayed up all night, because sometimes staying up all night is what you got to do. to make it happen. And you're like, this is a little short-term pain for long-term gain. I'll get a job that maybe will change my life, for the next few years and take me around the world multiple times and all that if I just bust my ass tonight. Once again, just be the best person in the room. That purity of like, I know what it takes. Because at the end of the day, it's like those pure, like if somebody works really hard and you can tell, and you're somebody that wants to hire somebody or whatever for a job, you can tell like if somebody's like this person is dedicated and I like their ethic, I like their approach, I like they're gonna go the extra mile, they're gonna do the job, I can count on them, to you can sense that shit. So as a boss. But anyway, Chris says, cool story. Yeah, it is, isn't it? I love that story. And about Britt and her, it's great. Those are that little success, where you imagine being that age and doing something. It was similar to my AC/DC thing, where I actually ended up on stage with AC/DC. Wasn't quite as, I had to go to the mall and do air guitar and all that. It wasn't quite as maybe in the moment of, but crazy that you could. She knew that they brought people up sometimes. She knew if she went with a big enough sign and they saw it, and maybe there was a chance that, So I love that story though. It's so cool, and they're a great band that way. Like they just don't. I was talking with Jason Freese, who plays keys with them. He's had that gig for 15 years and plays tours with them. And we went out for dinner last week, and he was talking about he just loves that he mentioned that he gave Billy Joe a sax lesson. Billy Joe said he wanted to learn a sax, and he's like, really? Because and he said, can you get me a sax? And he's like, well, they're like $6,000 for like a halfway decent one. He's like, that's okay. Like, you just go get me one. So he got him a sax, and he gave him one lesson on like embouchure and how to, get some sort of sound out of the thing. But he goes, I show him a couple things, and he says he can't even really, no notes. Like it's just, he gets that far. And he says that night he breaks it out on stage. And he says he goes to the front of the stage, and like he says, the crowd goes insane. And Jason's like, just like, oh my God. Because it's like he's practiced for so many years, but he's like, that's amazing. I can't get that kind of response, because the crowd goes nuts or whatever. And he says he loves that aspect of Grain Day. They just don't give a shit. They'll just go and, there's this crazy aspect that's really, really, really fun. So bringing up people from the crowd to play and all that. So cool. Metalhead Hippie was in the top chat, and I didn't miss it here, good sir. He says, what was the best milestone for your channel? What achievement made you feel the best about being on YouTube and making a go of it? Really, it was that initial moment when it all comes back to when I did the eruption lesson, and the guy poked me in the chest in Portugal when I was walking down the street. And he goes, you taught me how to play eruption. It was that when I went like, oh my God, the power of YouTube. It was that initial thing, and I probably only had 1,000 subscribers then, or a couple thousand or something. But the fact that he had, I'd reached somebody halfway around the world, I went, oh my God, this is a powerful, there's something to this that I got to investigate a little bit more. Also, when I did my first video demo, which was really the first, was the Sir Badger 18. And when they called me and they said, hey, everybody's talking about this video that you made, and it's, we've sold through the whole first run of amps, and that was another moment when I realized that it was, it was less about like the 100,000 subscribers or whatever, and more about those sort of organic moments when people told me how it had affected them. When I went like, oh, that's cool, less a statistic and more a real story from somebody, I guess. Christopher M is in the top chat, and he says, thanks for doing these, Pete. They've become a regular part of my Sunday afternoons. Thanks, Christopher. I'm happy that you're here, and good to have you. And thanks for doing the top chat. I really appreciate it. I missed somebody else in the top chat. It must have been Derek Chapman. And he says, have you used the Helix Live with great success using the cab and amp sims on board? And how did you rate the standard cab sims? Okay, so some of the standard cab sims I've had some success with. Some of the AC30 style ones. I prefer overall greenback cabs, which is my main kind of squeeze when it comes to speakers, that I can get out of like Celestion. And so I'll load other IRs in there because I'm used to those more. So my answer is probably a mixture. Now bass cabinets, there's some good ones in there that I use for bass guitar that I find sound really quite good. Uh, so it's a mix, you know. I haven't tried all of them though. Like I just kind of when it comes to IRs, I know what I like. Like I've got my favorite ones, and I feel like I want to load those in and then hear those with the amp models and whatever the amp model is saying. And then it kind of levels the playing field because I use that filter I'm used to. If that makes sense. And then you know, have I used it live? You know, I'm trying to think back. Have I used a Helix? I don't actually think I've played a full gig with just the Helix. Now I've done gigs with the Helix and the PT100, for instance, and the Helix was my effects, and I was using the Helix to channel switch the amp and all that. But just the Helix, it was my backup in Japan with Tyoshi, and I set up, you know, 5 or 6 presets to be like sort of mimic my main 5 or 6 presets with my main touring rig, and I played with the band with the Helix. So, um, but I used it in the arena, like to set up the sounds and the backup and stuff like that. And we played through the songs, and I went out front and listened to it in the PA, and A beat it directly in the PA. We spent, you know, probably an hour on this one day, with the presets I'd made and stuff, and listening to it, and it sounded really, really good actually. But did I ever do a gig with it? No. Never actually did the full show with just that being my tone source or anything because I had my full rig there. I used the Helix with the Kemper up in Canada with the band Took. That's the other time that I used it. Beyond that, you know, it's been mainly a recording thing for me, and then I'm mainly using real amps live. Not that I'd be opposed to it, because I think you know, I could. AX8 I've been using with the Queen Ultimate Queen Celebration when I play with them occasionally. So I've done that a little bit. Did I miss anybody in the top chat? I don't think so. I think looking back, I think that's it. Okay. So back to the standard chat here. Christopher says he's got an issue. He says he got a PT15 IR last week and paid $120 to have it delivered Friday. It sat at UPS for 2 days because they didn't see it. How dumb. He says, now coming Monday. UPS sucks. Well, dude, I hope you get it, and I hope you love it, and then it'll all be in the past soon. But I can't wait to hear what you think. It's coming tomorrow. So one more day, and then you can plug her in and wind it up. I'm sorry that happened, though. It's a bummer that you paid extra for the shipping, and it didn't work out. Ben Coombs is here, and it's nice to have him. I need an inspiring tone and nothing. Oh, I don't know what that means. The Alondo, something about needing an inspiring tone, but I think he's talking amongst yourselves in the chat. Let's see. Your go-to channel strip EQ, says Steve. He wants to know, have been using the Logic channel strip EQ on my tracking, looking to upgrade. Have you tried the Logic Vintage EQ? There's, you know, in Logic, there's a couple more EQs that once I did an update, I discovered them, and it's like there's a Neve style EQ in there, and it's pretty damn good. Sounds good to me. So that said, my main channel strip EQs, I use the Steven Slate virtual mix rack a lot, and I'll use their Neve EQ and their SSL style EQ. I use those a lot. If I'm mixing a song for a record, I tend to use the SSL channel from UA. And so it's usually some combination of those, the Steven Slate or the SSL UA. Occasionally, if I know I just want a certain thing, I'll use the 1073. If it's like, well, I could just use a bit of the clarity of that 12K band and the 1073, or a targeted mid thing, and I just want to roll off some lows. It's nice to pop one of those UA 1073s on a channel. What else do I use? I just got the Sheps channel from Waves, and I like it a lot. It's, you know, full on compression, distortion, EQ. It's a really full featured channel strip, and it's got some great presets and stuff. It's really nice. The Andrew Sheps Waves channel strip. So that's the one thing outside of UA and Steven Slate that I've been using a little bit lately. Check it out. Check it out. All right. Double R Guitars here. He says he's late to the party. Good to have you, though. Better late than never. And Ben's doing a little bit of moderating. Thanks, Ben. I appreciate that. I do. Somebody's up there in the top chat. Who's that? Robert. He says, how is your versatile fly reed PT15 and HX effects working out for you? Well, I'm actually going to do my next clinics. I think I'm going to incorporate the HX effects, and I'm going to do a song using the two of them because I want to come up with a new song for the next. So I'm starting some clinics, and I don't have the dates, but it's Colorado. I wanted to get the dates for today, and then I realized it was the weekend, and so I couldn't get in touch with the folks at SUR. Colorado, Austin, Omaha are coming up at the end of August, and so next week I'll have the dates for sure. It'll be still a couple weeks out from the clinics. I promise I'll get those this week for you guys if you don't know about them already. I think a lot of people already have been mentioning the Austin clinic, but there's a Omaha, Colorado, and Austin, 3 SUR dealers, and I got to get the names and stuff and do. I'll be putting up information on my Facebook as well as my Instagram and stuff like that, for those clinics. And in those clinics, in the next couple of weeks here, it's yet to be written, but I have to make a new song, and I want to use the HX effects. So that's my little challenge over the next couple of weeks, is coming up with a cool tune for the clinics that I can do. If anybody that's seen one of the clinics, they know I track a song in the clinic. But I was kind of using minimal, just a couple pedals and stuff like that, and then adding some delay and stuff in Logic for the tracks. What I'm going to do this time is I think use HX effects and the PT15 and go at it that way. So I'll bring an HX effects with me, and then they'll have PT15s at the dealer or whatever, and I can plug it in and track away. I think I'm going to call it Small Rig, Huge Tones. Yeah, kind of just, building on the concept of the original recording and production for the modern guitarist. Okay. Let's see. Be Rich says, I tailed out of live music at that age. Maybe he was talking about like around the same age that I, like 25, 26. Since I had an exceptional opportunity for grad school that made my attending there possible. Well, it's hard to turn that down. It's good to be versatile in life. Change your approach sometimes, right? What else we got here? Moving down to the chat, Andy Raxacams says, evening, Pete. What's up, man? How are you? I like Madonna, says SD Design. There, I said it. Hey, man, I like Madonna, too. She was all right. She had a few cool tunes. What else we got here? Looking down. Trying to find another gear question or music question or something. Madonna picks good musicians, says Double D Guitar. Indeed, she did. She got Paul Pesco, great guitar player, who ended up with Hall & Oates for a long time. He's terrific. You can see Paul on the Live at Daryl's House. I love that show. That show was really cool. Really, really great. My favorite is the funk guitar in Live to Tell. Yeah, that's a good song. Live to Tell. What's the funk part? I can't think of the part right now. That's a great song, though. That's probably one of my favorite Madonna tracks for sure. Okay. 2 questions from Do Fuzz. Thornbucker/Thornbucker Plus bridge position on a made in Mexico Strat with Fender Texas Specials. Would it work with the split positions? 2, name your favorite Police song and why. Favorite Police song is probably Walking on the Moon or maybe Bring on the Night. Because Bring on the Night's so cool. How the bass starts. It's just so moody. They were so cool with their I don't know. I love those songs. They just make me think of like, um, there were the early '80s was a cool time for like that emoting kind of like building a mood, sort of like "In the Air Tonight" is a great example of I love those kinds of tracks, and the Police had a lot of those. "Walking on the Moon's" another one. Just that chord, man. Space in music. Just the fact that he could go dropped in. Just the bass, the doom doom doom, boom boom, the doom doom doom. I love that, man. I like space. Let it just let it percolate for a minute. What was the other question? Thornbucker Plus. Yeah, they'll work with the split positions. No problem with a 5-way. You can do it so that the humbucker will tap. I don't know the wiring diagram. You'd probably have to get it from Sir, but you can ask them for a wiring diagram so that it'll coil split. No problem there. Okay. Omar Hakim played with Madonna and Victor Bailey on bass. I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know it was Omar. And then, of course, Omar worked with Sting on the Dream of the Blue Turtles, just to tie it all in with the Police thing. I need to buy a compressor so I can play funk guitar, says ST Design. Yeah, a good compressor is necessary for that. You got to have one for sure. Any plans to play the Old Town Pub again? I don't know. Maybe sometime soon. The band's just everybody got busy doing different things. Corey's always out with Promise of the Real and Neil Young, and Matt's always out with Ace Frehley and Lauren, and he's plays with the Who, and he's busy doing that. So it's hard to get us all in the same place at the same time. Adam Cave Project is in the. I'm sure we'll do it again. I'm just not sure exactly when. I actually want to play at the Kings Road in Pasadena because it's got more of a built-in crowd. I like the Old Town Pub; it's cool, but the Kings Road has a bit of this built-in thing. Then on a Friday and Saturday night with a great big outside patio, seems like it'd be fun to play there. I've seen some really good cover bands in there actually, and so maybe that next time I want to try and get in there, see how that goes. Have you tried the new PT cab with the Hedgehog by chance? Says Adam. Thoughts on that being a good option for that amp too? I don't see a problem. It's got enough power for it. When I think of the Hedgehog, the Hedgehog's a warmer amp overall. I mean, it's got a sparkly clean thing if you want it, but overdrive wise, it's darker and warmer. Could sound really good with the PT cab. The open back with 65s is the Hedgehog cab, and it's got overall, I would say, probably a brighter, airier kind of thing that might lend itself. I think John thought, he chose well, I think, with that cab. Open back, a little brighter, a little less thump and all that stuff. Because when you kick in the overdrive circuit on a Dumbly style amp or whatever, it's a little bit warmer, darker thing in general. It's not as that bright, toothy, edgy Marshall thing with the knock on the low end, or the thump. So it's a different sound. So I'm sure, dialing in it'd sound great. I just don't know about what I'm getting at is maybe greenbacks and closed back with the Hedgehog. Could be a great thing, but it might be more geared towards a slightly brighter, more open thing. I wonder if it'll fit. I think it'd fit probably really well on top of the cabinet. It would probably look really cool if you liked the sound. But I haven't really tried it, to be honest. So I'd have to plug it in and try it and see. I have them here. I have my cabinet here. I could try it, I guess, and get back to you. I can't start a band anytime soon, says Joe, so I plan to just play with backing tracks, which is new to me. I want to try to get the feel of playing with others. I play with my bro and friends over the years. Yeah, I mean, backing tracks, that can be a good thing. There's nothing like the experience of doing a gig, though, and playing with other people, playing off people, So it's funny that no matter how much you practice, you know, I know everybody out there that's gigged has discovered this. No matter how much you practice and work on stuff, um, in your studio or at home or whatever, or, you know, there's always stuff that happens on a gig that you learn that there's no other way to learn it other than actually doing the gig. But how many people got online? 356. Nice to have all you folks here. And let's see. Be Rich says he doesn't like jazz basses. He likes, but he does like the Bailey signature and the Marcus signature. Yeah, I'm not a jazz bass guy really either. I don't get them for my but I'm not a good bass player. So, I mean, I can play bass and come up with cool parts, but I'm not like a technically. I play with a pick and all that, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's like, maybe if I got a warmer sound by using my fingers, then I could play a jazz bass. It would be cool. But because I play with a pick and jazz pickups can just be like, it sounds so bright. It's kind of like a Strat on the bridge pickup to me. It's like when I want a fatter thing, you know? And that's why I like P basses, because it just sounds more like with a P bass pickup with a pick sounds, you know, it's got some solid tone to it. A jazz with a pick, I don't know. Okay. Let's see. Sean saying, what did Britt do when she toured with Paul McCartney? She was doing ticketing stuff, working in the like department where it was like, you know, getting tickets to people. I don't really know exactly what, but she worked in the office, you know, doing that stuff. Let's see. Do you love your guitars, or are they just tools to you? That's a great question. I've realized that some of them have more of a sentimental or quality, you know, like because of they've traveled all over the world with you and you played a lot of shows with them. You got great memories with them. So certain guitars have a more, you know, stories or whatever. Other ones, you know, tone and feel and stuff like, oh, like I identify playing that part with that guitar, you know, something you recorded or whatever. I'll get like my McMull I used for Remember, to record the clean guitar part of the whole first half of the song, and that guitar just sounds like that part to me, and I'll always connect that. Uh, but yeah, you know, certain guitars like my black Les Paul Custom, just a run of the mill black 2001 or 2002 Les Paul Custom, but I played all my gigs with Chris Cornell with that guitar, and I also used it with like Henley to play Hotel California every time. You know, that was the guitar they played the solo on, or whatever. I always remember that. You know, it feels. I actually with Don, I had other guitars there, but it's like, no, give me the black one. I got to play that guitar on that. It's just home base for playing that song, because I want to play it well when you've got a certain like level you're trying to, and there's like a consistency and a familiarity. Like I've always played it on that guitar, so I'm not going to switch it up and just have a wild card. You know, it's like I want to play that solo really well. So I hadn't even played with him for years the other day when I did the gig the other day, and that was nope, give me the black guitar. That's the Hotel California guitar. It's also the guitar that I played Slaves and Bulldozers on, or Jesus Christ Pose, or Black Hole Sun 300 times. You know, so that guitar's got a lot of miles, you know, and I've used it and beat it up, and it's just I don't know. We got stories. Me and that guitar. We got a relationship. All right. Moving down here. Tom says, I think some people are adverse to pain and pushing through. I was never successful by being lazy and unprepared. Yeah. You know, without picking on people or anything like that. I mean, I know what you mean. It's like, to me, it seems so simple, but I know it's because I had those early successes, like the AC/DC thing. I think it's important for people to understand the importance of hard work and learning the payoff, which is why maybe with kids and stuff like playing sports or whatever, you know, when you're young and you get the payoff of doing of some hard work and you know, getting up for practice on the Saturday morning or whatever and going, or whether it's, you know, the recital, whether you're playing piano or something, or, you know, like the payoff of the hard work you learn that, oh, I have to put this much time in. Yeah, I've noticed this instant gratification thing with, I don't want to start like a millennial bitch fest, but kids these days, they kind of want things. Kids these days, they want things to come kind of easy, but there is no substitute for that hard work, really. You guys know what I'm talking about. Um, the human brain takes so long to learn a song, and 15 songs or 10 songs or whatever, and practice it hard. And there's no substitute for that hard work. And, uh, putting in the time and the effort and being that still is what really matters. So anyway, Derek Chapman is in the top chat. He's in the UK, and he says, just to add, what would be your ideal setup for a live ampless and cabless setup? Straight to front of house with DI from your pedal board. Well, I've used recently, as I mentioned, the AX8, because it happens to sound really good for the Queen stuff. The AC30 sound with the treble booster and all that, and it's really, really good. And the stock cabs, it works great. Wouldn't have maybe known that, but Tristan Avakian, their main guitar player that does that gig, sent me his patches, and I plugged them in. It was like, that sounds great. And then I heard his live recordings because they sent me show tapes to practice with, and it sounded great. And I was like, well, when I play with this patch, it sounds like that. So he actually gave me his patches, and that made it all the more easy. So that works great. But yeah, that and Helix, I'd be happy to, the reality is with this stuff is that I could probably make just about any of it work. If you gave me a PT15 and an HX effects, or you gave me the PT15, two of them in stereo with my full pedal board rig, or if you gave me a Helix, I can make it all work and get the job done, because it's all good gear, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. It's like, it's all capable, good gear. If you spend enough time with it and really spend time dialing it in, these are all great tools. So it becomes about what's your preference of great gear. It's like cars, Do you want the Lexus, the BMW, the Mercedes, or, even the top end, whatever, Ford, whatever, Fusion, or do you want they're all going to get you to, between point A and B, Kia, man. I mean, I know a bunch of people that have gotten Kias recently. They're inexpensive cars. They're badass. They actually make great cars for the money. And it's like, I've been in them, like, well, I could live with one of these. Like, this is nice. And I feel the exact same way about all this gear. It's like, it becomes, I don't know. We live in a golden age of all this stuff where you just kind of go, well, you have to commit. Like, at some point, you're going to sit down and make some presets and learn some tunes and get some sounds. And it's like, I'm going to try this thing. I guess if you gave it 48 hours and you're like, I'm just not bonding with this thing, I'm going to try another approach. But most of the time, you plug in, you dial up some sounds, you make some presets, you hit store, you start practicing with it, and that becomes the rig for that gig. That's what I've found. You can kind of make a commitment. Well, let's make this work. And then you just go into it. I remember when I did the original, it was the Axe-Fx Ultra that I used with Melissa Etheridge. And they were like, okay, we're starting a tour. And this is when I first got the gig. You of course use your full rig in the States. That's no problem. We're going to throw in the truck and all that. We're all good. But hey, we got to go do a day of promo in New York City and do 5 TV shows in like 24 hours. And then right after that, we're leaving to go to Europe for 2 weeks. And you got to use all backline. We can't bring your gear. So we can bring a couple guitars and, you're going to have backline amps, maybe bring a pedal board. I was like, and I went, okay, I'm going to try the Axe-Fx. And I set up the Axe-Fx with my main rig, and I AB'd. I used an AB box in front of both rigs, and I went back and forth and recreated every single one of my presets that I'd done in my main rig on the Axe-Fx to the best of my ability. And I went at it the same way. I kind of tried to recreate virtually my rig in the Axe-Fx. So in other words, I only used like a few different amp models. I had my Fender clean sound, which my PT100 did. I had my Marshall drive, and then I had my boosted lead. So I just went, okay, what's the closest amp models I can find to those sounds? AB, AB, AB. I found the ones. And then it's like, okay, the other 75 amp models in there, I'm not even going to listen to. I'm just going to, that like sort of cutting my options and just limiting it to those things really helped to focus, because I had about 2 days to do this. I remember when I did it. And I made every single preset with all the timed delays and everything that I needed for her music, certain things and certain songs, and I just recreated all the sounds, and it worked fine. I went and did it, and everybody was happy. The gear is good enough that that it sounded great in this, I remember Michelle, the woman that ran sound, she's an awesome sound person. She was like, "Well, mix sounds really good." She was like, in the PA, I'm happy if you're happy. And I was like, I'm happy. So, uh, that's the reality of it. You can make it work and it's good. Is it as fun? I mean, not as fun as my real amps and cabs pushing air and all that. I was just on in-ears with no cabs on stage at that point. I was using the Axe FX Direct. Uh, but it got the job done. And, at the end of the day, the checks get cut and you make your salary and move on and everything's cool. Good tools. It's all good tools. Lauren L. Scott Music says showing dedication at a job interview or audition shows respect, and people of all sorts like being respected. It's true. At the end of the day, people just want to be respected, and they want to. I always use the, you're one less problem, because there's always problems in business and stuff, and they're stressed. Hiring a band is stressful. Trying to get a gig or hiring an employee is stressful, because you're like, is it going to be another bonehead? Are they going to screw up? And then I'm going to be back here again interviewing more people. And so when you come in and you're prepared and you're dedicated and you show that you're eager to get the job and that you're, a good candidate, and you seem like a nice person to boot, you're just putting yourself, it's like, oh, problem solved. You want to be a problem solved. Looking for a person for a position is a problem, that they see as it's also an opportunity, but for the most part, it's stressful, I think. Staying up all night working on something gets harder as you get older. You have to learn to do things smarter. That's part of gaining experience, says Wolf Z. Come on, you can do it one night. I'll still pull an all-nighter if I hear that Dave Grohl needs a guitar player tomorrow. I'm staying up all night. Do the research. I'm gonna get the goddamn gig. I'm very competitive when it comes to getting gigs. What else we got here? This keeps you young too, by the way, right? It's like, I still got it. I am a contender. I'm still a contender. Renaissance Man, what are your thoughts on the cage system for chords, and why do many guitar teachers say it's bad to learn? Do they really? Like, why? What's the thought on it being bad? Because I think it's kind of cool, actually. Anything that helps you visualize the notes of what's happening musically, if you're trying to play a melodic part, is good in my mind. I don't got no problem with the cage system. I don't know why, but I'm not a super trained guitar. I did go to MI and I've got my limited theoretical knowledge and stuff, but anything that helps you not see the guitar as some box position and more the notes of the chords that are happening, to me, is helpful. I don't know. If you were not a musician, what do you think you'd have done instead? Some college degree and career job. That's from Mr. 5150. Well, I find medicine interesting, actually. And so I don't know if that would have occurred to me back then, but I grew up in a city that's got a pretty good college. The University of Alberta's got in Edmonton's, there's some, it's a good school. It's a good school. So I could have gone there and actually, gone to med school or something, I think, and probably found that pretty interesting. But I don't know. I thought that later on, like, when the grass is always greener. Like, I was probably mid-20s and I'd never gone to college. Basically I'm a numbskull with a high school education. And I thought later on, well, kind of cool to go to college, and what did I miss out on? But you never know. So what can you do? Can't lament about that stuff. Let's see. What else we got here? What else we got? Looking down. Shauna says, how I love your eruption tutorial. Thanks, Shauna. I must be far back in the chat. Wow. I should probably get to the bottom of the chat here and page down, at the bottom of the page, because I'm sorry. Please ask your question again if I haven't answered it. Start here. Martin says many great Soundgarden and Audioslave songs were recorded with a jazz bass. Ben and Tim moved to P basses later. Anyway, do you mod all your guitars with Surf style treble bleed mod? Keep up the great work. Not all of them, but a lot of my guitars have treble bleed circuits. The vintage ones generally I don't mod. Or guitars only if it's like needs it. The Surf style treble bleed is, I guess, have grown pretty accustomed to it in most of my guitars, and it does sound really good to me. It's pretty natural sounding. But what was the other question? Oh, you were mentioning the jazz bass. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, Geddy Lee, obviously, I think a good fingers player, it's a different thing because the tone of your fingers is boom. You get that, and then with a pick, it's boom, boom, right? And so it's a different thing. The tone of a jazz bass pickup, I think it probably, if I had some decent finger technique, would be fine. With a P bass and a pick is just a cool kind of rock and roll approach. It's just got a different sound. Yeah. Just moved from Japan to Chicago, says Andrew. That's a big move. Most of the toys are in transit. Practicing with one guitar and a laptop and Helix Native. Nice to be in the time zone for Guitar Church now. Well, good to see you. What were you doing over in Japan, I wonder? And that's a big move. Very different place. Similar climate, maybe, eh? The humidity and the extremes. Japan can be so extreme with I've found. But I hope you're enjoying it over there. And I miss Japan. I can't wait to get back. It's been too long. It's been a year since I was there now. It's too long. I really miss it. Trying to figure out a way to get back there sometime soon. Yeah. Somebody's mentioning they have bias and tone stack for modelers. They are great, but terrible with guitar volume, not like a tube amp. Is Kemper good? Sort of. The Kemper kind of responds like with the roll down. I don't know if exactly the same. This, for whatever reason, the simpler the amp is, the more sensitive to the less sort of stuff in the preamp and less electronics and less, I don't know. I know you guys know what I'm talking about, but like a plexi, for whatever reason, just you roll it down, it cleans right up. It's as simple as it gets, the amp designs, and those are the ones that are the most dynamic with the guitar. And you start adding more preamp gain and stuff like that, and more. It's not just the more gain. I don't know what it is. It's just like less, something about a plexi and the distortion, the quality of the. Maybe it's got to do with impedance or I don't know what, but whatever's going on with the input, it's so sensitive to both guitars, effects, pickup changes, and volume on the guitar. It's the most, it's like everything's blowing up and accentuated. As far as tonal differences, and yeah. Let's see. Derek Brown says the tone sound quality of gear for the money spent these days is crazy. I agree. Yeah, just great, options. I would have killed to have half the stuff out today when I first started. I know. Yeah, it's basically really easy to get a great sound these days. Incredibly simple. Guitars are funny, says Tom. Does it sound any different to the audience? Probably not. Well, we have to keep in mind, the guitar is just slotting into the mix and just a part of the overall picture, isn't it? And it's, when you hear a band like that's really guitar forward, then I guess it becomes, obviously it makes sense. It becomes more of a thing then. If it's David Gilmour or if it's AC/DC, and the guitar is really, or if it's James Taylor playing acoustic guitar, the guitar and the pickup and the quality of everything becomes more because it's such the focal point, but if you're playing in a pop band or doing something where there's keys and you're in the mix and you're panned and the guitar isn't this, it becomes, only makes sense. It's so harder and harder to tell the differences between rigs and stuff. So it's good to keep an idea of. I learned that playing with Don, actually, because Don was a big band with 2 keyboard players, 2 guitars, lots of background vocals. There's lots of stuff going on, and the guitar just sort of slots in. Now, when I started with Henley, I had a big wet dry wet rig, and all this stuff. And then Stuart, the other guitar player, Stuart Smith, who plays in the Eagles as well on the other side of the stage, used a few pedals into a PV Classic 50. And when I would hear the board tapes, it'd be like his tone was poking through more than mine, and it sounded he had this focused, more mids mono guitar sound that worked really well in that band, and that was really interesting, and it was a learning experience for me. I was like, oh, maybe I'm using too much stuff and focusing too much on delays and atmosphere and making sure everything's like, it's not translating in a live thing like I thought it might, and I had to learn that through experience, I guess. So it depends on the band you're in, and what you're doing, I guess. Sasha Boo Boo is in the top chat. Thank you, good sir. Good interviewing you and Tim Pierce. Oh, spoof interviewing you and Tim Pierce. Greatest guitar interviews of all time. My channel. Funny stuff. I hope you find it funny. I haven't seen those, Mr. Sasha Boo Boo, but I should check it out. Rusty Cooley. Do I know Rusty Cooley? No, he's Texas, right? I believe he's a Texas guy. And I thanks for doing the top chat, man. I've never met him, but I know he was kind of like a heavy technique shredder guy, right, in Texas. I remember his guitar lessons that he would have occasionally in the 90s and maybe early 2000s in Guitar Player magazine. He had a column for a bit, I think. So I know of him. I know who you're talking about. The tone, sound quality of gear. Oh, I already said that. For the money these days is exceptional. Let's see. My teacher, who is a GIT grad, wants me to use patterns instead of cage chord system, so I will ask him on this. Yeah, I mean, to me, I remember my teacher at MI, just to tie it all in with somebody at MI, my teacher, who was my private instructor at MI, because we each have a private instructor we were assigned to that you take a lesson with once a week to make sure you're on the curriculum. I remember him telling me for about like 3 months, he did nothing but play arpeggios. So he would just play through chord progressions, playing the arpeggios in each position. I think if you did that, he went, I am just going to learn arpeggios all over the neck. So I'm going to play like whatever, pick a song, a chord progression, 1-6, 4-5 or something like that. And just play arpeggios up and down for 2 bars in every position. If you did that, you probably wouldn't need to worry about the cage. What you want to have is a perspective on the music as it's going by, and it's a certain chord. You want to be able to visualize where the key notes in the chord are. Ideally, like you want to know where those things are all over the neck as you're playing. So, and I'm not saying I'm actually great at this. I'm not, although I've gotten better at it over time, but it's really jazz approach. You've got a real intimate kind of knowledge of the harmony and stuff as it's going by, so that you can make appropriate choices that aren't based on some pattern, a scale pattern, which has nothing to do with the music or the notes. Imagine a person playing saxophone or singing, for that matter. When you're singing, you're not playing some pattern that's like some physical thing. You're just, it's there's a purity to the notes and stuff that you're choosing based on the chords that are going by. And that's kind of what you want to be able to do, like combining. If you can combine a knowledge, like, so that what's going by chordally, with tuning into your inner kind of melodic sense of where you should go next, both phrasing and melodically, that's what makes a great improviser. And you want it to happen in real time as much as possible, I think, so that you hear where you should go, and then you go there and you know where that note is on the neck, and all this stuff becomes as hopefully as effortless as speaking a sentence like I am right now, where I'm trying to articulate something, but I'm not thinking about the individual letters, or it's that flow, because that can seem like, well, how do I get there? But think about speaking a language fluently, and that's really what you're trying to do with all of this stuff, is somehow gain a fluency. So What else we got here? Tone Talk's in the house. What's up? How are you, man? Looking for another question. SD Design says Def Leppard rocks. Still one of the best shows I ever saw was Hysteria Tour. What a great show that was. It was like, the 80s, all, just in one show. It was fun. Can you list all your clinics in one place on Facebook? Yes, that's Doc IC. I will do that. More like a concert date listing on a band's page. Yeah, I will do. I'll definitely put up some stuff where it's at least Instagram posts and stuff where it's at least you could reference that. But or post on my website stuff. It's so much stuff to do all the time that sometimes things fall by the wayside. But that's not one that I want to fall by the wayside. All right. Moving down in the chat. What time is it? 12:57. So, another 20 minutes or so? Yeah. I'm going to hang for another 20. I like Hysteria best, I think, says SD Design. I agree. That's the best. It's kind of the, well, they set out to make I heard the Thriller of pop metal albums or whatever. They wanted to make a record with all killer, no filler, like Thriller. All killer, no filler, like Thriller. And I think they did a great job. But that was, that was the goal, I think, and they sure did. I listened to the whole thing all the way through actually a while ago on a drive back from Sur. I was on a long drive, and I thought I haven't listened to this record in 25 years. I should listen to. You hear the songs on the radio, Love Bites or Animal or these songs, whatever. But Pour Some Sugar on Me, probably the biggest song off that record, right? I would say, but. There was a bunch of other tracks that I forgot, even Gods of War or something, right? And all these other songs on that I hadn't heard in years. And then I listened to the previous record, Pyromania. I listened to a bit of that. There's a bunch of tracks on there. I was like, I don't even remember this song. But I used to love Def Leppard. They sounded like, more poppy to me. Stealth Parrot says, Pete, do you have any Tom Schultz legacy Rockman gear? I don't. I used to have a Rockman though in the 80s, and I loved it. It was cool. Like compression, and just felt good to play through. It's easy to practice through. Yeah. So I guess Def Leppard played in Calgary on Wednesday, so they must have played Edmonton too. I'm sure. I'd love to see them again in my hometown. That would be cool. It'd be neat to see them again. Let's see. What else have we got here? In the chat. What do I think of Peterson tuners? Says Tone Talk. The new Strobo tuner. I haven't seen a new one. I have about 3 of the old one. I used to use them on my pedal boards. I think that was my tuner with Cornell, actually. It was Peterson Strobe. Yeah, it was. I had one of the gray ones and one of the blue. I didn't like the blue one that much, and then the gray one was better. I think it was like the second version. Pretty good. Once I got the TC, that just became my tuner because I loved the stability of the needle on it, and it just seemed I just got accustomed to the Polytune. But I didn't mind the Peterson. Pretty cool. What do I think about Phil X? He's my buddy. I love him. He's a good dude. He's a Canadian and a my brother from another mother. What else? Doc IC saying he has a new Strobo Stomp HD and it's fantastic. Yeah, I'd like to try a new one. A huge screen, that's always good for me because I'm so blind. Customizable colors for each suite and tuning. That's interesting. Did your Always On jam have a title, or was it a jam for the pedal demo? No, I just wrote it for the demo, but I like that one, and I might make a song out of it. I think I might do that for sure. My favorite 80s show was Yes 90125 tour, complete with laser show. They actually did that 9012 Live was filmed in my hometown, I think. That's the one. It wasn't Big Generator Tour. The next one, I think it was the 9012 Live. It was actually done in Edmonton at the convention center there. Pretty sure. I know they did one live album. It might have been the one for the Big Generator Tour, but I'm pretty sure it's 9012 Live. Maybe somebody can look that up and check, but I think it was Edmonton. I didn't see that show. I don't know why, because I love that record. Why didn't I go? I should have gone. Trevor Rabin, great. That record's cool, man. All those cool guitar sounds, the harmonizer and all that, and the chorus and that 60 Strat he used to play. He had great tones. I have no idea what he used. Does anybody know what Trevor Rabin played through on those records? His amp and stuff. I'm sure he used it, Eventide and all kinds of stuff, but that was a neat version of that band. Most classic, I know probably Steve Stevens and other, folks that are big Steve Howe aficionados would be like, that might be blasphemy. but I grew up, of course, it's when you're young and what you grow up with, right? So the version of Genesis that I kind of bonded with was with Phil Collins singing and, like around, and then there were three and Abacab and Duke in those albums. And then Mama, which I saw that tour was. Anybody ever see the Mama tour when he used to sing? I love that song. Let's talk about a moody 80s song, Mama. That's the coolest. He'd do the ha 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 part where he'd lean down into this Genesis light show. As cool as lights are now with the very lights and all that crap, those lights, man, all those par cans used to just blow my mind. They look so cool. So some of the light shows that people remember, if you ever saw Queen or Genesis in the early 80s, was just amazing. And Genesis had always amazing light shows. But when he'd do that ha 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 part, he'd lean down. There was one yellow spot on his face. So all the lights would go dark in the whole arena, and there'd be one spot on his face shining up. And he'd do that part, and it was so cool. I don't know. It was like super effective lighting. Anyways. Oh yeah. What else? Any crazy Don Henley stories? No, I don't. That's all private information. No, nothing crazy. But he's a private guy, so I will of course always respect that. But I find him to be a he's a boss, and he likes things to go well, and he wants things like this. And as long as things go like this, and everybody does their job, everything's okay. And I actually really like him. And I hadn't seen him in a long time. It was great to see him last week. Ethan Anders is in the top chat. He says, "Hey Pete, if you could only buy one, which one and why? Original Marshall Super Lead, SL68, or a PT100?" Well, if I can only have one, it'd be the PT100, because I know that I would want the versatility to do my job. So that's my honest truth there. If all I had for the rest of my life was a Marshall, or I would probably go with the SL68 if it was not a PT100, because it's got the master volume, which would allow me to still do my job and not. I know a Super Lead would be too loud for many situations, and that I'd be kicked off the stage. So I'm thinking from a work perspective. SL68 is also just a reliable, it's a great version of that amplifier that you can count on. Yeah. Graphics for Hysteria Live in the round stage and the album cover, and that sound made it magical sounding. Yeah, that's Brett. Yeah, it's a great memory of the stage. Nobody had ever really done a rock show in the round like that, I don't think. And it was the coolest, because showing up at the show, you realize there was no bad seats with the stage in the middle. And it was just so fun and different. It was like, well, this is amazing. Like, these guys can run all over the place and stuff. And it was so cool. I don't know, just a different show that I'd ever seen before. And it was fun. Can you do a lesson on the Boys of Summer solo? I never played that, because that's Stewart's part on the other side. Although I did play it when I originally did my audition for Don Henley in 2000. But it's something like Um, mm, mm, uh, uh, right. That's all it is. I've never. I don't. I think that's. I think that's the right key. Where is it? I can't remember right now. But anyway, uh, it's just those notes. That's out in the second and third string. You know, that's how you would play it. Um, real exercise in simplicity. Mike Campbell's guitar playing. I love it so much. You know, he's. Oh, and you just reminded me. I need to learn. I'm playing a song tomorrow at Sunset Jam. Doing You Wreck Me, so I need to go and learn some. Not that I haven't played it before, I have, but I need to go over that so I can play it tomorrow night and remember it. Mike Campbell, he's a genius, and you know I love that approach. Mike Campbell in the Canadian version, which is Keith Scott, to me was always the Canadian Mike Campbell. Just meat and potatoes, great melodic guitar parts that connect with people, whether or not they're a guitar player. SD Designs in the top chat. He says, "Do you have any thoughts about the Eventide H9?" I have two, so that shows that I've used two on my pedal board now for probably 6 or 7 years, 6 years since it came out. It's a great unit. It's a little. If I've got anything I don't like about it, it's the strength. And if nobody follows him on Twitter, follow douchey side. What's his name? Douchey side guy. I think it's douchey side guy on Twitter, and he's super funny. He's like nobody knows who it is, but he's like some LA musician, and it's really funny. And he said he put up a Twitter post a while ago. Said got fired from my gig for being on my phone all rehearsal. Um, all I was doing was adjusting my Eventide H9, but they didn't believe me. I thought it was hilarious. He's just really funny. If you're a guitar player, you know, he's just joking around, obviously. But anyway, douchey side guy. Yeah, follow him on Twitter. He's really funny. But yeah, that's the damn phone. You know, it's great. It's like this blessing and curse thing where I need to turn up the mix. I got to Bluetooth my phone. Yeah, where's the settings? Oh, settings, Bluetooth. Yeah, there's the Eventide H9. I have two of them, so I got to pick the right one, and then it connects, and then it says connected, and then the app sort of opens, and then I got to get into the app, and then where is it again to find the? Oh no, it's not there. It's not. Oh, there it is. Oh, I got to go to page 2. Okay. Anybody that's got an H9 knows what I'm talking about. That's the length of time it takes to get to the knob to adjust the mix or whatever. But it sounds great. They sound great. The sounds are good, and once you dial in the tone, it's there, and you just store it, and then it's terrific. And some of my favorite thing, like the black hole reverb, is really incredible. That earth reverb setting is really wonderful. It's like I guess a hall setting or something. The spring's great. I used the spring on the whole show last week with Don. Actually, I have a spring reverb dialed up that just, I thought I'd just leave this on the whole time. It sounded great, nice and warm. And anyway, Andy says, "Do I like Phil X?" Yes, I like Phil X. I think he's great. Phil, how can you not like Phil? He's high energy and fun and a great guitar player. Will you be putting out another pro musician video, says Preston? Yeah, I just kind of fell off the train of doing it a little bit around the time. I was like, well, what else have I got to talk about right now? I know there's some other things I can come up with, but I guess I'll give it a break for a minute and I'll get back to it. I also want to do some other. I've been writing down some ideas for other YouTube videos. I want to do one on our vintage guitar is really better or different. I want to do one on modulation and how to dial in modulation to be not so obvious, like using modulation in kind of a stealthy way to just enhance your tone. So like things like modulated reverbs, modulated delay, not necessarily overt out and out chorus or flanging. Subtle detune, things like that, little tricks. So those are a couple videos that I want to get to and make pretty soon. Yeah. On Through the Night was raw, but was cool as hell at the time. Yeah, I remember On Through the Night, and that was still with Pete. What was his name? Who was the guitar player in Def Leppard before No, it was before Phil, right? Pete, what's his name? I can't remember his name. He played the White Explorer, and it was originally Steve Clark and Pete something or other, and that was the On Through the Night guitar. I wonder what ever happened to that guy. Anybody know where he's at? Did he start another band? Then he left around High and Dry, right? And that's when Phil Collin joined. And of course, then the next two albums was Phil and Steve. Steve passed away, and then we had Vivian for now probably by far the longest running period. Christopher Crooms is in the top chat. He says, Pete, Axe effects or Helix effects to go with my PT15IR. Looking for a light grab and go solution. Any thoughts on what unit sounds the most realistic? You mean FX8 or Helix effects? The FX8 is going to be a probably deeper unit with more stuff going on. It's deeper in the as just Axe effects in general. It's deeper and there's more involved in the programming and all that stuff, and it's like a little bit more heady. It's also bigger, but that's not to say, it doesn't sound good. I did a video with it that I really loved. This, the sounds are great. Sounds really good. So it's got great tones. The HX effects is smaller, lighter, simpler. Still deep. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Just depends, on what, Axe effects people or Helix people, you get into these camps, and it seems like it's more probably about just getting used to the way the units work and the way they're programmed than anything. And once you get comfortable with it, you become a convert or whatever. I don't want to swing you either way. I'll just say that, one's bigger, heavier, a little bit more complicated, a little bit deeper, sounds really good. The other one's lighter, smaller, less options, but maybe more than enough for what most people need. Oh, the only thing is, does the FX have relay switching? I don't remember right now if the FX8 actually has relay amp switching. I think it might have at least one relay. Can somebody say that down in the chat? I just can't remember right now. Matt is in the top chat, and he says he's in the UK. He says he's got 6 tube amps, which he records through an aux. Would like to swap between them to compare tones when reamping. You need an amp switcher like what I have. So see up there, I've got my right there, the 88 from Pete, and I can switch 8 amplifiers into 3 cabs right now. I mean, I can do more than 3 cabs. It'll do 8 into 8, but right now I've got the Surreactive load, the aux, and a real cabinet all hooked up on the speaker outputs. I pick one of those 3 outs, and then I can pick any one of the 8 amps, and it works like a charm. So I would recommend the Pete products with no hesitation, for sure. Once again, I've gotten behind in the chat. I'm going to answer as much as I can for the next 10 minutes or so and then split. Pete, I noticed in a lot of demos you do some awesome fast flicks that are chicken picked or picked with your finger. Ben Grace. Yeah, I do these kind of very easy pull-off things a lot. Where I'm on the second string with the pick and then on the top string with my one finger. And they sound like more complicated than they are. But yeah, where I'll do a pull off of say 3 notes on the top string, and then I'll pick the note on the second string, and then pull off and then pick, and pull off and pick. I don't have where's a pick? Here's a pick. So I'll do this kind of like, if you're like on the top string. It's an easy way to get a lot going on without doing very much. I'm pulling off from the 15th fret to the 12th fret to the 10th fret on the high E string, and then I'm hitting with the pick on the second string at the 12th fret. And then you can just walk up to different positions. So hope that makes sense. I do that. I do that one a lot because there's, like I said, it's a lot of mileage without having it. It's actually really easy. I like easy. Having said all that shit about hard work and all that, I like easy. Okay, what else we got here? Would love to have a lesson on some of these types of licks. Well, there it was. I did it. I gave away my secret. You got it now. No way. High and Dry is their best album, says Old Metal Dude. High and Dry is really good. High and Dry is kind of like the Def Leppard Highway to Hell. And then Back in Black is the AC/DC Hysteria. Both produced by the same guy, right? Have I met Lincoln Brewster, says Steven. I have not. Always really dug his tone and strat tone and playing. I've never met him, actually. Yeah, he's really good. Even Evan Ward says, because Dio rocks hard and Def Lepp after High and Dry does not. Well, it's like, that Hysteria thing. It was what a great record, though. It's one of those records that I can't imagine it being any different. Kind of like 1984 by Van Halen, where it's got a sound, and the sound has a lot to do with, they made it in the racquetball court with early 5150, where he used the Simmons kicks and all that, and the live snare and cymbals, but the toms are Simmons, and it's got the sound to it. And Hysteria has that sound with the Rockman guitars. I don't think there's any real amps on the record, and it just has this sound that is a thing. Pete, what one lick should every guitar player know? Geez, I don't know. Whole Lot of Love. That's the first one that came to mind because it's so cool. Yeah, a lot going on without doing too much, says Lauren. Right up my alley. Totally. Yeah, Brett says Vivian Campbell kind of played his own spin on stage with Def Leppard, but he learned to play like Steve did to keep the Def Leppard sound on songs Steve played on. Yeah, Vivian was an interesting choice for that band. He's obviously had a great run with them. I don't want to say overqualified because Steve's a great guitar player, but he was the rhythm guitar player, and Vivian was really like a pretty ripping lead guy. I think Phil's kind of the main lead guy, right? In Def Leppard, and always has been. I don't know. Obviously, a great job. Like how could you turn it down? I'd be happy to go do it. That's for sure. There'd be no reservations from me, especially not in the 80s or early 90s or whenever. I guess it was in the 80s when he joined. But anyway, you guys know what I mean. He was known as a ripping lead guitar player with Dio. Really cool lead style and everything, and then he kind of settled into Def Leppard, and that became his role or whatever. Can't fault him for that, that's for sure. Vivian seems like a cool guy. I'd love to meet him sometime, actually. I've met Phil once. He was very nice. Very cool, but I've never met Vivian. What else have we got here? Got to split soon, but a couple more questions. I'm just going to go to the end here, guys. What percentage of your live playing sideman work is soloing versus rhythm parts? Well, it's exactly what you would think, There's always kind of, some songs it's nothing. It's like interesting when I joined Melissa Etheridge's band, it was a lot of solos every song, it's solo. She gained an interest in playing some lead guitar and more electric guitar towards the second and third year that I worked with her. And then it became more about, hey, so on this tour, I think I'm going to take the solo on that song. And I tried to really foster that. I was like, oh, that's cool, because she wanted to get better at playing electric guitar and play more. I mean, she's a great guitar player. The 12th, she's got a whole style, but playing solos on electric guitar was new to her, and she was having fun with it. So then I almost went into more towards the end of my time with her into more of the rhythm guitar role and just backing her up, and she would really, take a lot of that stuff. So it depends. Sometimes it changes on the gig. With Cornell, I was talking about this with somebody yesterday. Yogi was a very Hendrixy, loose kind of guitar player, more that kind of wild card stuff. Great at that. thing, let him improvise, and he's got a jazz background and stuff, and so he was that. I was a little more just structured, if it was Tom Morello, although I played some of the Soundgarden solos too. I played solos on Slaves and Bulldozers, and can't remember what else right now, but some of the, I had my Soundgarden solos, but he took a lot of the like Spoon Man and Black Hole Sun, whereas I was the rotary guitar part on Black Hole Sun, and more like the any of the Tom Morello solos. I really did most of those, like more of the kind of, I don't know why, it's just like any of the Audio Slave stuff, and so I kind of tended to do that, and Yogi, the more kind of, think Kim Thale is kind of more wild card fuzz something or other, that was like Yogi's role a little bit more than me. So that was that band. And touring with Dawn, I would kind of fill the Joe Walsh role, really. And the Stewart would play a lot of the more of the Don Felder parts, but without that being a hard and fast rule or anything like that. But that's kind of the way that it seemed to break down a lot. So it just depends on the gig, really depends on the gig. Will you be coming to Toronto, says Phil? I was just in Toronto doing a clinic actually not that long ago. It was I guess it was 6 months ago now, but it was in the winter. Was it December? I think it was in December, but so not sure if I'll be back anytime super soon, because the dealer there is Cosmo, and they sort of did their clinic with me, but I'd love to go back sometime soon. Do you know the tuning for Dead Wishes from Cornell? I learned it, and I would have no idea now. I'd have to go. Oh, dude, I don't remember. I played it with him in last show I played with him in 2016. And it's got a unique tuning. You know what? I'll go in my email right now and find the email from him. And he will tell us the tuning. There it is. Wait. Because I had to ask him at some point, so I know I've got it here somewhere. I'm not seeing it. I'm finding a set list from that gig. That was January 26, 2016. That was the gig. Tuning. Just one sec. Let me see. 2212. I know he told me at some point, man, but I'm not seeing it here. I wish I could find it for you. I thought it'd be really cool if I could somehow just pull it out of the email here, but Peter, Chris, and Blair song list not in order. Maybe one of these. Looking here, just one sec. It's weird looking through these emails, because it's like, he's saying like, "Hey rocker, here's my record," before Higher Truth came out. Please do not forward. It doesn't come out for a while. I trust you, of course. And he's just, send me the album so I could listen to it. He's talking about my template in Logic. By the way, I started using your latest template. I used to send him Logic templates. Started using your latest template for drums, and holy shit, sounds amazing. Demoing new Soundgarden, and it makes it so much easier. I'm going to do all my guitars and vocals at home this time. Anyway, now I get all emotional. On that note, I will split. I will look for that and see if I can find the tuning. And see if I can see if I can track it down. But Yeah, somebody's from Romano saying, "So cool, you still have the correspondence from Chris." Yeah, I kept it all, you know. It's weird to look some of the emails and the uh, even some voice messages and stuff like that, you know. It's like, but anyways. All right, well, I'm gonna go, you guys. So have a good week, and I'll see you next time. Next Sunday, there's nothing stopping me from being here. Same time, same place. Oh, there is a barbecue later that day that I'm going to, but that's okay. That'll be in the afternoon. So next Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll see you here. I'll see if I can track down that tuning. Maybe post it on my Facebook or something this week for your information. Okay, y'all. Have a good one. See ya.